Thank you for listening to this episode of the MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys, specialists in a wide range of exotic materials for any application for all your engineering needs.
Hello and welcome to this week's MTDCNC Podcast. And today I have travelled down to Brighton to the Dugard HQ, and I'm here with Andy Gregory, one of the applications engineers. And we're going to go through Andy, find out where he came from, what he does and his job role, and then we're going to move on to the Hanwha machines and maybe go through some of the topics and some of the features you might not know Hanwha have. So Andy, first, thank you for your time today.
You're very welcome.
So where did it all begin?
So back in the late 90s, I gravitated towards engineering. It's been in my family for generations, so it was kind of inevitable that I'd end up doing something along these lines. Started off sweeping the course, making the tea as you do, and kind of worked my way out. Eventually, I had a business running purely sliding head machines from various manufacturers, and that's really where my skill set has always laid. It is in sliding head purely.
So why was it sliding head? Was that just what was on offer at the time? Because obviously a lot of people would have gone into 3-axis or 5-axis, not straight into sliding head.
Yeah, a lot of people would have done it the right way. No, it stemmed from my dad. He was trained in Switzerland on sliding head camel auto machines. And I kind of learned from him, I suppose. As you do growing up, you're surrounded by it. So I had more of a knowledge of sliding head as opposed to other forms of machining from a younger age, really. And
do you think that was sort of where you are today, that's where it's all come from? Because obviously a lot of people will learn, or even if they go to college, will learn on a manual 3-axis, and then they'll sort of move into different paths. You've sort of stayed on the same path from being very young all the way up.
I have, yeah. It's been very blinkered, if you might call it that. Purely sliding head discipline of machining. I never really ventured out into other areas because the work that we targeted in our business was sliding head work.
So what is it about a sliding head lathe? So for people who listen to this who obviously are into 3-axis or 5-axis or even just a bit of mill turn, what is it about a sliding head lathe that's just different compared to anything else on the market?
The thing that people, I guess, find difficult to start with is the fact that most machining, you'll bring the material out and then you'll run the tools around the material to produce the part. Sliding head is kind of the exact opposite of that. So the tools are stationary, the material moves. People struggle a little bit with that to start with. But the reason for it goes back to watch making from turn of the century. They needed really, really high precision, small parts made consistently over long periods in high volume. So that's where sliding head machines really kind of came from.
And we're gonna go into a bit more detail on the Hanwha sliding heads a little bit later. But talk us through your job role, because you're an applications engineer. But what is an applications engineer?
So we kind of cover a few different areas. The main thing that we do really is training guys to use the machines that they buy from Dugards. We obviously have apps engineers for the various machines, but I do the Hanwha sliding heads myself. So when a customer buys a machine, I go in, calm the nerves a little bit, so to speak, show them around the machine, show them how to use it, teach them the programming side. There are some slight differences in the way you would program and a juicer job on sliding end as opposed to others. Really goes from that. So that's the training side. And then the other side is problem solving. Generally any assistance a customer needs with anyone, whether they write a program or...
Now you must see both ends of the scale with the customer. You must see the customer who's getting their first sliding head machine right up to the one that's got their 13th, 14th, 15th. So what's some of the major worries from the customer who's got their first sliding head? Because obviously you'll be the first point of contact. When that machine's on the ground and they go, oh my God, it's actually here. Yeah. You must be the first point of contact. So what are some of the experiences you've had with customers when you've arrived?
Well, the first thing is I know exactly how they feel because I've been on the other side of it. I've bought machines where I've had it put on the floor, watched the lorry drive out the end of the driveway, and suddenly gone, what am I going to do with this big lump of metal that's sat in front of me? So I do understand the nerves that come with it. Generally speaking, customers are unsure of the unknown more than anything. Once they get to know the machine and they understand how relatively easy generally they are to use, there's nothing too scary about them, there's nothing too complicated about them. The nerves tend to settle a little bit. That's the new guys, if you like. Guys that are more experienced have got maybe 2, 3, half dozen, 14, 15 machines and upwards. Their main concern is get it up, get it running, because they know that these things earn money when they're running, and when they're not running, they're not. So they just want to get it up, get it running, get it making as quickly as possible. So you kind of have a different time frame of training, if you like, from one to the other.
Now, obviously, like you said, you've been on both sides of that.
Yeah.
So do you think that helps you sort of deal with a customer when they're panicking a bit, because you can sort of say, well, wait a minute, I've been there, I've done it, and I sort of know what you're feeling, and it will be okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, all customers are different, but generally speaking, I can relate quite well with customers because they understand that I've been where they are. I know the pressures that they're under. I know that everything that comes along with it. So I will do what I can to try and make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. At the end of the day, we don't want customers to buy a machine. We want the machine to be the step in, and we want to supply more machines to customers. So it's important that happen.
And you don't just do that support from your base here in Brighton. You travel all over the place.
I cover the entire UK. So.
I bet that's good fun though, because I bet you get to see a variety of different machine shops all producing different parts.
I have been in machine shops from every end of the scale you could possibly imagine. I've been in the type of places where you wipe your feet when you leave, right the way up to fully automated, temperature controlled, high security buildings that are doing the kind of work that people generally don't see. Yeah.
And the work we can't really talk about.
And the stuff that we can't really talk about. But yeah, I mean, we get, it's inevitable that we're going to see whatever the customer that's bought the machine is doing. So.
But surely that must really sort of rely on the Hanwhas and show what they're capable of. That you go into into such a variety of companies, like I said, from places you wipe your feet on the way out to these places you need government clearance to get into. But surely that shows the range of what these machines can do.
Absolutely. The machines, regardless of what industry the part is for, if it's on the machine and the machine has got the tooling positions to do it, that the Hanwha will produce an excellent part. And that's really all the customers are worried about. Where it ultimately ends up is their concern. Our concern is making sure they get the part that they want. It's the right quality and it comes up in a good time.
So let's move on to talking about the Hanwha machine.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, this is your role. You are the Hanwha apps guy. So talk us through what people think and what people say when they come and visit to look at a Hanwha, because as we know, there's many different brands on the market.
There are, yeah.
But what's the Hanwha got that others seem not to have?
I think it's a combination of things. People are always wary about the new kid on the block, so to speak. Hanwha are only really been around for about 5, 6 years. They're really beginning to make the mark now. Competitive machines have maybe been in the UK for decades, so there's more of a comfort zone, I suppose. So when people come and look at the Hanwhas, the initial reaction is they're usually quite surprised at the build quality. Some machines that come over are a good price, but they're a good price for a reason. The build quality is quite up to spec. But that simply isn't the case with the Hanwha. I mean, if anything, they're over-engineered, as opposed to competitive machines. Drives, slides are always bulkier, heavier. The machines have a heavier footprint, which makes them, it helps with stability. And they look over the machines, and generally speaking, they like how easy they are to get in and operate, and that really begins the conversation, I suppose.
And that actually leads me on to my next question. Obviously, I talk to people all week, every week. And one of the biggest concerns I always hear from people who are wanting to get into sliding head is, how do I program them? Because obviously there's so much going on at any one point. Is, well, I only program a 3-axis lathe. Do you think I can learn to program that? So how easy are these to actually program, and what on the control is there to help somebody? And what sort of experiences have you had with somebody who's never had one before and then getting them up and running?
To a certain extent, it's going to depend on the person that you've got stood in front of you, inevitably. But generally speaking, people pick this up pretty quickly. Guys who've got any kind of FANUC experience, because it's FANUC-based program, will understand predominantly the coding. But I've taken guys who their first time they've ever seen a sliding head is Monday morning. By Friday, they program and set in their own word, with a little supervision. But generally speaking, that they're 90% of the way there. The rest comes with time spent on the machine, as with any other.
Because I bet there's a lot of people out there who get a bit worried that I'm going to spend all this money and then it's going to take me another 2, 3, 4 months to learn to run it, so I'm still not producing parts. But like you're saying, if it's only taking a week from somebody who's never touched one to running, setting, operating, it's not a very long time scale, is it?
It's not a huge learning curve, but the thing to remember is that you're never on your own. If you buy a machine from us, it's not the case where we drop the machine in, we install it, I come in for a week, and then we'll vanish into the night. It doesn't work like that. I have customers that I trained a year ago that still phone me up. Sometimes we could, with help and advice. We'll always make sure that the machine is paying back for your investment. That's the most important there. The training runs parallel, if you like, to that. So if you need help to get a job running, we will help you get the job running so that you're earning your money while we then do your training in the back.
And that's something you don't really see. Sometimes you see training that's been done a week, a month maybe, and then it's goodbye, you're on your own, have fun with it. But for you guys for somebody else to ring you, like I said, weekly, so I'm just having this problem, just having that problem. Yeah. Surely that shows by people returning to you after they bought one. Sure, you must see the same customers coming back.
Generally speaking, since I've been here, I've noticed the trend that once we get a machine, they've got their first Hanwha in. Generally, it's not too long before they're looking at putting an over. And I would say probably the majority of the companies that I deal with have multiple Hanwha machines that don't just have one.
So talk us through some of the features, because obviously, like you said, there's a couple of other different manufacturers on the market for sliding head machines, but not all sliding heads are the same, and that's the big point I want to get across here. Everybody, there's quite a few people that go, well, if I buy one, I might as well just buy from whoever because they're all the same, but they're not. So what sort of features do you get on a Hanwha which maybe you wouldn't get on a competitor?
So Hanwha have what they call their own overlay in the screen. So you've got your control. Other manufacturers will have their software that you will run through. Hanwha have added an extra layer of overlay to that. And what they've done is they've basically done some shortcut codes, G codes, basically, that will do certain functions without having to longhand write all of the coding in the program. For example, part ejects we do with a single code, G340, that will bring the suction over forward, it will open the collet, it will eject the cart, it will run the cushion in through, it will do an air blow, it will retract suction to the safe position. Does that all with that single code. And you go into the Hanwha overlay when you're setting the machine up and you just give it a couple of bits of information for certain things. Really, the only one you ever need to alter is the pivot. You tell it how far over the part you want to pick apart.
So that's obviously different to other programming types, because normally you would have to program each of them operations.
You would code each section of that, each movement you would do separately.
So surely that's making the programming a lot easier as well, and a lot faster.
That's another side to it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it makes the programming easier to write, but it also helps the cycle time. The less code a machine has to read, the quicker the cycle time is going to be.
Because, but then obviously that, because I know there's and I'm not gonna lie, I did think this before. I spoke to you a year or two ago when I first started talking about the Hanwhas. Is I always thought you needed quite a big batch size to run a sliding head machine. It wasn't just I've got 1, 2, 3 parts. It's I've got 500, I've got 1,000. Set it running, leave it going for a week. That's it.
Yeah.
But with how fast you can now actually program these, do you see companies actually doing one-offs on these now?
I used to do that myself, so yes. We had 2 machines dedicated to short batch production because the profit margins in it are far.
And
because you can swap jobs quickly.
And that's it. And like, now I know some people are starting to automate just one part, but I've seen you set this up. Last time we were here, you were setting up the XD10, and the speed you wrote a program got it up and running. I'd only been for a brew and come back, and it was running, and it just blew my mind because it wasn't how I thought a sliding head machine could be used.
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to see, especially with people who bought their first one, that there seems to be almost some preconceived notions about sliding head, and some people look at it almost a little bit like doo-doo. They're a little bit scared of it. They're not quite sure how or why it's doing what it's doing. And
to be honest, I get that. When you see everything moving at once and you're
it can be a little scary. The machines are designed to be very, very fast in producing the hearts. That's how they're designed to operate. So when you see one running for the first time and the slides are quite compact and things are moving around very close to each other, it can be a little nervy.
It is, but it's what gets me is how fast it runs, but how tight the tolerances you get when machining. And it's not like 1 out of 10 parts will be spot on. It's 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, 1,000 out of 1,000 will all be right.
Yeah.
And it's just, they're unbelievable machines.
Yeah. I mean, some companies run high spec tolerances. They're allowed 3 parts per million failure. And sliding is to produce that kind of work.
But how is it a sliding head machine can do that? So how is it if I run a normal 3-axis lathe and I run a sliding head lathe and I'm doing the same part? How is it that a sliding head machine will make that part to tolerance every single time?
It's down to the slide bush. So sliding head, you have obviously your 2 spindle collets, but you also have the addition of the guide bush. So the material runs through a bush that basically steadies and holds the material in place while it's passed over the tools. And the tools always cut just in front of the guide bush, usually about 1 mil, sometimes less, of clearance. So the material is always supported really, really steadily at the point of cut. So you get much less deflection with maintain much higher tolerances over a long period.
And it's the size of the parts you can make as well, because some of the parts I've seen come off these, I don't even know how people measure them, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen and have in fact produced watch screws that you need almost need a microscope in order to inspect threads and things like that on them.
But so talking about features on the machine, obviously that surely machining parts to that size and that scale brings another problem of once you've parted that off, how do you find it? Because obviously if that falls in the machine, it's gone. So how does a sliding head lathe make sure that once that very, very small part is machined, you get it out the conveyor compared to it just falling into the swarf and being lost?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, that's not an issue. Most parts are big enough that they'll just run off. But when you're looking at the really, really small parts, Hanwha do actually offer a vacuum ejection system. So effectively, as soon as the collet opens, the part is sucked down a tube and is deposited in a filter at the back of the machine. So,
which, to be fair,
ways to solve these problems.
But talking about how the machines have got different ways to solve all these problems, What sort of size machines do Hanwha do? Because obviously, I don't even know what we're in front of here. What size?
This one's an XDI 32.
So there's a 32 here, and then there's a 10 at the other side of the showroom.
Yep.
So is that sort of largest and smallest, or is the...
No. Generally speaking, 10 is probably the smallest machine that most people in the UK will buy. We did at one point go down to a 3, an XDO 3. But the XD10 is really the smallest machine you would be looking at that still gives you the option of a range of prices. What you don't want to do is buy a machine that's limited to a particular size of part. Besides, you want to have the option of multiple different sizes of bar and things like that. So we start off with the 10. There are steps up. Most popular models really are the XD20s, XD26s, various different tooling configurations we can put on those. Then we come up, the machine behind us here is the XDI, which is kind of the flagship to an extent. We also have the STL, which is a turret model. Again, that's 32mm. And then we go up to 42. So XD42 is our large ship.
So there's quite a wide range of machines in the catalogue for Hanwha.
We can cater for most jobs up to about 42.
And I think I just want to get across for maybe people at home who've not seen, the XD10, like you were saying, is one of the smaller machines. But it's not a very small machine. You can see the build quality of that machine because it's still quite chunky.
Yeah.
Even for a small machine, there's a lot there.
You get a lot, and the XD10 is quite a small footprint for a sliding head machine as well. So for what you get for the size of the machine, they're excellent, and they are, as you say, the build quality is absolutely great.
So I know you've got a list in front of you. So what's some of the other features we've not spoke about that you would get on a Hanwha machine?
Well, to start off with, obviously the PCR3, the chip breaking. Other manufacturers do offer their own versions of this, so I'm not going to say that Hanwha are the only people that can do this for you. The difference with Hanwha is you get it as standard on the machine, whereas it's an option usually on machines.
Well, what's one of the advantages of having the chip breaking software?
It's exceptional on things like plastics. Any materials where you, as people used to say, that the material with the swarf of bird's nest around tools and things like that, it's basically interrupted cut. So you get long string swarf turns into little chips.
And sure, that must be an advantage for people who are running these overnight or through a weekend when they're not there.
Yeah. I mean, sliding heads are really designed to be set up and kind of left running, monitored obviously to an extent, but you don't need a guy stood in front of a machine for the entire ship. So if you've got a job where swarf may be an issue and the machine is only being monitored, let's say it's being checked every half hour or something, it caters for the problem that you may have of swarf build-up.
So next up, what we got after PCR3?
PCR3, yeah. There are a couple of things. I mean, Hanwha do one very popular one is hole chamfering. So if you're producing a cross-tapped hole in a part, as people know, when you spot that to produce a lead for the tap, you're going to have a wider chamfer on the higher diameters than you are on the lower side of the hole, and you end up with a
You end up with like an egg, don't you? You end up like an egg shape.
Hole. With hole chamfering, you tell it the whole diameter of the cut size and what size chamfer you want. You fill that out in the little Hanwha overlay, and then you simply cut the G400 code in your program. And what the milling cutter will do, or the spot drill will do, is it will actually move up and down in X and side to side in Y to produce an even chamfer all the way around the hole.
And then obviously when you've got companies, when you've got sectors like aerospace who are very tight on that sort of thing.
Yeah, it can be important. And there are jobs where you may have a chamfer tolerance all the way around the hole, which would be virtually impossible to do without hole chamfer.
See, that's a great feature, that, to me, because obviously I've been there. I've done exactly that, where the customers ask for you to chamfer a hole, and the only way you can do it is drop straight into it with a spot drill, and sort of you end up with a 0.1, and then a 0.6 at the other side, and it's like...
Yeah. Or you stand there and you do it the longhand way, and you actually code it to do what whole chamfer will do anyway.
But that's just one G code again.
Just one G code.
So again, that's making speed of programming, cycle times faster. Now, what sort of monitoring software do you guys do for the Hanwha range? Because obviously, like we've said, these are meant to be just set up and just left running.
Yeah.
So do you do any sort of monitoring software you can have on your phone, on your computer, so that you're not doing that? You're not doing what you see a lot of people do, where they're running out, checking the machine, running back in, running out.
Yeah, believe me, I've done it. Yeah, it's a system called high CPS. Again, it comes with the machine, should you want to use it. It runs through our servicing career. And basically what it does is it's remote monitoring on however many Hanwha machines you've got on your shop floor. You can have an app on your phone, or you can go to the website on your laptop or desktop, wherever. And basically you can see your shop floor. You can see each individual machine. You can click on the machines. It will tell you whether the machine's running, whether it's stopped on one cycle, whether it's alarmed out. It will tell you how many parts are made, how many it's got to make, schedules. It will give you a raft of different information about all sorts of things, cycle times. You can also, to an extent, remotely monitor and control the machine. So you can, for instance, you can take it off continuous and put it on one cycle. You can make minor offset adjustments and things like that remotely through the app.
Now that to me is amazing. So I could be sat on a beach, my machine's running at home with just, let's just say, an operator. Like we said, we don't leave them running constantly, get them checked every now and again. But you could be sat somewhere on holiday or in the office, at home, and you can check to make sure that machine's running. If something's alarmed out, you can obviously ring the operator and say, that tool's broke, whatever, can you just change it and then set it running again? So surely that must give people more confidence in lights out running, weekend running, because they're not, and I'm guessing you've probably done this, and I'm guessing where you've ran back at a weekend to check everything's all right.
Every weekend for 25 years, so yes. Yeah, no, it's a piece of software that I would have used.
I was just about to ask you that. How fundamental would that software have been for you when you were doing it?
It would have been massive for me. There was nothing really to this extent around at the point I was doing what I was doing back then. It would have made my life so much easier. See, even just sometimes you just want to log on and see the green lights. It's really all about that.
Well, I know we've been to a few places before where they've got machines that don't have this sort of software, and they've put security cameras up so they can just log on and check. But that's great, but then surely that must bring a second worry, because if you log on and something's got, oh no, why is that red light flashing? Why is that orange light flashing?
Yeah.
But obviously with that software, you can log on and go, oh wait a minute, the orange light's flashing because.
Yes. So the difference is one of them is a snapshot, a photo of what's happening at that particular mode, whereas high CPS, yes, your machine may have stopped, or will tell you why it stopped, it'll tell you when it stopped, how many parts it had made when it stopped. And that's just one side of the high CPS. You've got the other side, which is more of a management useful side, if you like, which can give you monthly efficiency reports on your machine. It can give you how much power usage your machine is pulling. There's a whole, I mean, you can really go down the rabbit hole a little bit with it. It gives you an awful lot of very useful information.
Well, and I'm guessing you've been there, there'll be companies who really love to delve into all that information. And I bet there's companies that know exactly what machine's pulling what power, for what part, for what tool.
Yeah.
Now, just lastly, before we finish, because we've gone through quite a lot in this, do you guys have any sort of software to help with programming these machines as well? Because obviously you'll get the people who can.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm guessing you can. Who will be able to program it from the machine. I could never program that well in G-code. I was a lot better at conversational, let's put it that way. But do you have sort of a programming side that can help people program these machines?
So, no, I would never expect anyone to know this instantly. It's this kind of thing you build up over time. So, as you say, to expedite that process, to make sure that these machines are paying you back in the shortest time possible, we have, again, Cree software from Hanwha, which is known as PG Editor. We at Dugard have written some modules, custom modules that we've inserted into this program. What it allows you to do is drag and drop each module to assemble a program. So the first thing I would teach with sliding head is you need to understand how you're going to make your part, which way round you want to do it, what features you want to do on which side of the program. Most machines run twin channel, so 2 programs. So we've got a head 1 and a head 2, main spindle, side spindle program. Work out what you want to do each side, and then you can just drag these, a turning section, a drilling section, a cross drilling section, and all you need to do is change the dimensions to see what you want to do.
And surely that must give a customer more confidence in programming their own machine.
Yeah, it gives them confidence to an extent, but it gives them a helping hand in as much as they know they've got the ability to get a job running on that machine. Maybe before they fully understand all of the coding in the program, it's not going to prevent them from getting that machine running. We've already got all the codes in the right orders, in the right places in these modules, so they don't need to worry about that. And then they can pick it up as they go along.
Well, Andy, I'd just like to say a big thank you from me and everybody at MTD for your time this morning. It's been great to hear about you and where you started and what must give customers more confidence in yourself, because obviously you've been there, you've done it, you've got the background. And it's been great to learn more about the Dugard and the Hanwha machines, because every time I come here I learn something new and it's just brilliant. So
we've got some fun for it.
Well, that's for you to play. Yeah, I bet you do have fun on an afternoon.
Yeah, it's always something to play around with it, so it's good.
Well, Andy, thank you very much. And for you guys at home listening, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you in the next one.
The MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys. Unique metals for demanding applications, providing first-class performance and an international service.